I think this is session 48, and we're still in the Temple Act, especially the teaching. You have made it a den of robbers or a cave of lestai, these violent revolutionaries like Barabbas. I want to say something about Barabbas, which is interesting that some may not know. It's in all four Gospels, this passage about a Bar Abbas, son of the father, who had been in some sort of insurrection and killed. And there's supposed to be some sort of custom that a prisoner is released during Passover. I don't think that's been established, but perhaps the Talmud picks up on what the Gospels say and refers to such a custom. But the point, I think, from a literary point of view, is that Barabbas is a false son of God and a true revolutionary, and Jesus is the true son of God and a falsely accused revolutionary. So these are the kinds of things that I think we should keep in mind when reading and interpreting the Bible correctly. In my intro to Bible notes on my website, it's about 200 pages. I say something like the Bible should be taken literally the right way, not like a fundamentalist would do, but in the Jewish tradition, even parts of letters are important. So every single word in the Bible is very, very important. And I even argue that there are no unintentional errors in the Bible. In other words, material mistakes or errors in the Bible are intentional, except for the limitations of the time as far as science and history and things like that. So there are a lot of sort of exceptions as to, unintentional errors in the Bible. But nevertheless, in general, well, most universally, if Jesus said Abiathar, or if Mark writes Abiathar and Matthew avoids it, that's because the point needed to be made that the unmentionable Abiathar, he becomes unmentionable in Chronicles in the opposite sense. Jesus mentions the unmentionable by omitting the right name of Ahimelech in the plucking grains on the Sabbath incident in Mark 2:36. So you have these intentional, not mentioning of names or intentional mentioning of the wrong name. And I have examples like that. Matthew says Jeremiah instead of Zechariah for the 30 pieces of silver. And all these are sort of ways of creating hyperlinks to non-obvious texts. Everybody would know that the 30 pieces of silver is Exodus, Zechariah, Jesus. Another instance, by the way, of Torah recycled in the prophets, fulfilled in the New Testament. But we're not going to get too sidetracked with that. I did want to wrap up the Jeremiah 7 exposition, in this type of format, kind of a balance between academic and not so academic. I mentioned that Jeremiah is of the defrocked Levitical or Mushite. That's another expression I haven't used yet. Frank Moore Cross uses Mushite for the Moses type of priesthood, as opposed to the Aaronid or Zadokite priesthood. And of course, the Bible says Moses and Aaron were brothers, and many, many, many texts are going to have Moses and Aaron, they're inseparable. But nevertheless, if you look at a Deuteronomic text like Deuteronomy, the only time Aaron is mentioned is the sin in Exodus 32 with the golden calf, and he died. That's all the press Aaron gets in Deuteronomy. And of course, he's the bad guy in Exodus 32, which is a Levitical type interruption, if you will, of the whole Sinai episode. So the importance of that is to understand the background to Jeremiah when he says, thus says Yahweh of hosts, the God of Israel, add holocaust to your sacrifices and eat the meat, because when I took your fathers out of Egypt, I didn't speak about or command anything regarding holocaust and sacrifice. We mentioned yesterday, what about Leviticus? Well, at this time, Leviticus is simply maybe the priest's manual. That's what the Jewish tradition calls it, Torat HaKohanim. And it's not yet accepted by all in the various schools in Israel or the exile of Judah. What I did command was this other thing. Hear my voice, and I will be your God, and you will be my people, and you will follow the whole way that I will command you, so that it goes well for you. But they did not listen nor lend their ear, but rather they proceeded in their counsels according to the obstinacy of their bad hearts, and they turned the back instead of the face from the time in which your fathers left the land of Egypt until today. This is an incredibly Deuteronomic passage, and it's in prose, so that I think this is one of the Deuteronomic sections of Jeremiah. And I sent all my servants, the prophets, this is pure Deuteronomic language, each day punctually, but they did not listen to me nor apply their ear, but they hardened their necks worse than their fathers. And you shall tell them all these words, pure Deuteronomy. Remember, he's being depicted as the prophet like Moses of Deuteronomy 18:15. The Lord will raise up a prophet like me. He's given a 40-year ministry artificially to resemble, to make him similar to Moses. He can't talk very well. He's a youth. He's afraid. Yahweh puts his words in his mouth, just like Deuteronomy 18, this eschatological prophet is supposed to do, who, of course, is explicitly applied to Jesus in Acts. I think it's 2:33, chapter 2 of Acts. So that this is the final warning before the exile. A prophet like Moses has finally arisen. The end of Deuteronomy is no prophet yet. I know a lot of people like to translate never again, but I think the Hebrew there really should be translated not yet has a prophet like Moses risen in Israel, who spoke to God, I think face to face or mouth to mouth or something like this. And so I think that historically speaking, this prophet Jeremiah, right up to 587, which is the destruction of the temple of Solomon, which ends the first temple period, if you will, or the primary history, as David Noel Friedman calls it. In other words, Genesis to Kings. It's like the history of failure. And then the latter prophets, of whom Jeremiah is part, but historically he's the last one announcing the undoing of the whole Exodus. They go back to Egypt, says the end curse in Deuteronomy 28. Even Jeremiah is kidnapped and taken to Egypt. So that at the end of Kings, 2 Kings 25:26, everyone, small and large and great, went back to Egypt and tried to sell themselves as slaves, and no one was buying. If you look at the last curse in Deuteronomy 28, which is then followed by the new covenant, a separate covenant apart from the one made in Horeb, Sinai. And Moab, this separate covenant, is made in this waiting room, lobby, before entrance. That's the setting of Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy 29. And that is the new covenant of Jeremiah 31. I will write the law in their hearts, which is tantamount to a circumcision of the heart. Circumcision of the heart. So you see how we can look at this Bible, you know, as interconnected this way. And this little verse, you have made it a den of robbers, referring back to Jeremiah 7, opens up a whole, series of hyperlinks, or whatever you want to call it, to biblical theology. So that another thing is that he mentions here that the sons of Judah, the Jews, if you want, they're all Jews, have done what is wrong for me, says Yahweh. They have put their abominations. Shikutzim. Now, this word is where you're going to get the abomination of the desolation in Daniel, then recycled by the Maccabees to apply it to the sacrificing of the pig on the altar by Antiochus IV Epiphanes. So you have the Septuagint translates the same bedelugmata, is abominations used in Greek for the abomination of the desolation. And then you have, at the end of chapter 7, the whole, I will suspend in the streets of Judah and the streets of Jerusalem the voice of joy and gladness, the voice of the bride and the voice of the bridegroom, because the whole land will be a desolation. And in Greek it's eis ereimosin, which is basically the same kind of language as in the abomination of the desolation. You combine the abomination of these idols that they sacrifice children to in the valley of the son of Himnan, or Gay ben Himnan, or Gehenna, hell, this trash burning place in Jerusalem, I think in the Kidron Valley. You combine those abominations with the desolation that the land will be, and you've got the abomination of the desolation, and you've got that in Daniel, I think chapter 11, and for sure. And then you've got the Maccabees, and then you have Jesus in Mark 13. When you see the desolation of the abomination of the desolation, standing where he ought not. It's using like it was a person. Some have thought maybe Caligula or something. But you've got this idea of destruction, desecration of the temple. And we're going to get to what I said was, not today, but we're going to get to the 7 elements that I detected in the Maccabee accounts of a true katharismos, purification, cleansing of a temple. After that, precisely sacrificing the pig on the altar, which rendered the altar unusable, and they put the stones away to the side, saying until a prophet should arise to tell us what to do with them. but the 7 elements associated with that Hanukkah dedication of the temple again are found in Mark in reverse. And so we're going to look at that in due time. So you've got this Gehenna in there, not so different really from Sodom and Gomorrah that we spoke about, the catastrophe. You know, and you've got that passage in Deuteronomy, which is very powerful. Where the people ask, why all this desolation, why all this destruction? What happened here? And the answer will be they abandoned Yahweh, their God, etc. And they, suffered this incredible wrath. I'm going to read it to you a little bit. Deuteronomy 29, when the future generation, your sons who will come after you, just like the foreigner that comes from a faraway place, sees the plagues of this land and the illnesses with which Yahweh will punish it, and exclaim, sulfur, salt, calcium, this whole land is burned. It won't be sowed in, or no will it sprout any grass that will grow in it, as in the catastrophe. Forgot about that one, of Sodom and Gomorrah, Admah and Seboyim, that Yahweh desolated with his wrath and his furor. And all the nations will ask, why has Yahweh treated the land like this? Why the fire of such fury? And it will be said, because they abandoned the covenant of Yahweh, the God of their fathers, that he cut with them when he took them out of Egypt, to go after other gods that they did not know, nor which had been given to them as their lot. And thus the wrath of Yahweh was burnt against this country, this land, and he has brought over it all this curse written in this book. And so you've got, I think, the emotional background to what Jeremiah is talking about, that I think this little hyperlink in Mark 11:15 or 17 rather, you have made it into a cave of bandits, refers to. I was telling you about the bandits. These are bloodshedders, so that this in Ezekiel, for example, you've got a blood-shedding sun. See if I can find that quick. So we're running out of time. The word there, this peritz guy, that's translated lestes or lestai in plural. Cave of bandits is violent people. Ezekiel talks about a blood-shedding son, a bad son that does things that are terrible, that his parents don't accept, etc. Therefore, in Ezekiel 18, if he begets a violent son, a ben paritzei, so that's where you get this blood-shedding son. The Bible, this translation says, a violent and bloodthirsty son. So that's the kind of word this is, translated into Greek. It's a violent, blood-shedding person. And we will end by again referring to the fact that very shortly Jesus is going to give the parable of the murderers, vine dressers, where they killed the beloved son in the end. And with that, we'll have to stop.